Hi everyone, happy Wednesday. I'm back. And what a fun day has it been. It's not too active here, at least locally in Florida, but we have some weather news today that we can talk about. Some exciting stuff. Not really exciting, it's actually, when you think about it, sad news in a way. When you think about storms from last year that have produced a lot of damage, and the ones that usually do produce damage or it was a catastrophe, lead to deaths, they tend to get retired, these storm names. And Ida was announced today by the World Meteorological Organization that they will be retiring that storm, meaning that throughout any other hurricane season, this list usually recycles. They use it over and over again. It will not be on that list anymore. It's going to be interchanged with Imani instead, just because of the destruction and the catastrophe that it caused when it made landfall in New Orleans last year. So I thought we could talk a little bit about tropics today. That's been a question of concern for a lot of people over the last few weeks, obviously. So hurricane season starts in June. We're very, very close to the start of hurricane season. And of course, we cannot predict, really, we can't call how many storms it's going to be throughout the rest of the year. We can make a forecast just based off of the conditions that we're seeing and what we're expecting over the next couple of months. And that's what a lot of organizations have done. They do that every single year. They release their forecasts, and it kind of gives us a gauge into what we can expect as we get into this year for hurricane season. The last 2 years, research institutions have called for an above average season, and they nailed it. I mean, each year has been above average, 2020, 2021. We could definitely be seeing that once again this year. All right, let me know where you're watching from as well. Hi, Diane from Live Oak. Good afternoon once again, Tia. Thanks for joining me again. Deborah from Parrish. Hey, Eric from Brandon. So some Florida folks in here. And I say that because a lot of times we get people from all over the world, all over the country, and rarely Florida folks, but there's a good bit of y'all today in the chat, clearly, because we're talking tropics. No, that's a conversation that we like to join in on. So if you have any tropics questions, please feel free to let me know, and I will try to reach out to you. Colleen, good morning, or good afternoon. It's afternoon. I have no concept of time these days. So here's a look at our retired ice storm names. This is a great graphic that I want to show you all because it really just shows how ice storms tend to come through and come through with a punch. All these storms have been retired since 2001. There have been 12 official retired storms. We don't name storms. We don't use IOTA. That was on the supplemental list. So if that was to be used, that would be 13, but 12, this is just since 2001, and since 2001, there's been 10 storms that have been retired by the WMO because, oh, let's see, sorry, I'm trying to answer, I'm trying to respond to people too in a conversation. Susan in Clearwater, hey, Alan from Maine, what's going on? Martin and Meg and Sharon and Jorge, George, I'm not exactly sure how to pronounce that. And George asks, how is La Nina looking? Well, I can tell you this, it's looking like we will not have an El Nino this year, which is not the best situation for storms. With that El Nino, we tend to get more wind shear, and we're not really expecting that. You know, with wind shear, that does inhibit tropical storm formation. Doesn't mean that we won't have any storms when we have more wind shear present, but we tend to have less storms. And with the lack of El Nino and also with warmer sea surface temperatures, that is a perfect combination to get storms to fire up, develop, and we may see an uptick once again in tropical storm formation as we get into the next several months. Hopefully it doesn't happen, but that's kind of the situation that we're in. So we just have to wait and see how many storms we do get. And I'll show you what the Colorado State University Hurricane Research Department, what their forecast was this year. And usually they're pretty accurate. And that's what they're pretty much calling for. Once again, above average season just based off of those two factors. Patricia from Haines City. Yeah, she asked kind of the same question. Are we still in La Nina, and how does that affect hurricane season? That's pretty much it. With La Nina, you tend to get more wind shear. With El Nino, excuse me, you tend to get less. All right. Or I said that opposite. With El Nino, you tend to get more wind shear. With La Nina, you tend to get less. All right, let me go ahead. Once again, if you have any questions, let me know, and I can try to answer them. Hey, Jackie, she's watching from Tampa. How's it going? So, actually, let me go back to that graphic there. It's just a really great graphic to show you these ice storms. It's ridiculous. 12 retired ice storms, with Ida being the most recent one of 2021. If you recall Irma, comment down below if you remember Irma, if you were here in Florida when Irma made landfall and then went up the western coast of Florida. It's, of course, a very memorable storm for a lot of people here in this area, for Polk County, for the Fort Myers area. Just very impactful, and hopefully we don't get any Irmas. But that was a retired storm for obvious reasons. And as we get throughout the next few months, hurricane season will be here, and these are the names of 2020. The first name will be Alex. We tend to get storms forming earlier on, like in May, even though hurricane season officially starts in June. We get outlooks now before June 1st, just to accompany those storms that do form a little earlier on during the year. So Alex could form pretty early. The last couple of years, we've had our A storms form early. So we'll have to see if that happens. Tyler Moore wrote a great article on our website about May storms, and you should definitely check that out. It's really, really informative if you want to get really in depth about what type of storms we tend to see in May and what we can expect for the rest of the hurricane season. We like to make sure you guys are super prepared as we get into hurricane season, because things can change very, very quickly. At this point in time, you should be getting prepared, making sure you have all your supplies, making sure that your insurance is good to go, having all your papers ready, having a go plan, an evacuation plan, a go bag with all of your necessities needed in case a storm does head up to Florida or along the western coast of Florida and does impact us. Because once again, for 2022, we could be getting through all of these names. Last year we did it, the year before we did it, and we had to go into the Greek names, and we got pretty far down that Greek name list. I mentioned iota, and just hoping that doesn't happen this year, obviously. But those are the 2022 names. Here's a supplemental list of names because of last year. Or the year before, rather. We now have official names for hurricane seasons. They're not the Greek letters anymore. So if we use up our 2022 names, we'll have to jump over to this list and continue down the list. Hopefully we don't have to do that. We don't have to use Adria or Deshaun or Emery, Foster, Gemma. They're cool names, but hopefully we don't have to touch those this year. We could all use a break. But the way it is looking, and we may not get a break. This is the hurricane season outlook. This is from Colorado State University. People tend to ask, why Colorado State? That's a good question. Colorado State is an amazing research institution when it comes to tropical storms, and they release an outlook every single year. This is just a forecast. This doesn't mean that we're going to see this many storms, but we definitely could. And the average named storms, even that number went up compared to the last couple of years, because we've seen an uptick in storms throughout each year. 2020, 2021. So we have 14 named storms. That's the average. Named storms could be a tropical storm, or it could be a hurricane. Sometimes you get a lot of tropical storms. The average hurricanes is now 7, and major hurricanes 3. That's an average year, and that is quite a bit, but of course that could occur anywhere within the Atlantic Basin, not just here in Florida. Colorado State University is calling for 17 named storms, 8 hurricanes, so a little bit above average on the hurricane side, 17 named storms above average, of course. And in major hurricanes, of those hurricanes becoming major Cat 3s or higher, that could be 4. That's just their forecast. NOAA, the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Association. named storms 13 to 20. That's a pretty big range, obviously. And NOAA is more known, obviously, in the sense of weather and everything tropics. They're calling for 13 to 20, so that's in that well above average range. We've gotten 20 before. We've exhausted our entire list before, 2 years in a row. And before that, it was 2005. We all know what happened in '05. It was an incredible hurricane season with Katrina. That's pretty much the most probably memorable storm and from 2005. But we could get up to 20 storms once again. And some of those storms could be out in the Atlantic, far away, not really affecting much except maybe ships and possibly small islands. But it's a storm nonetheless, and if it gets a name, it gets a name. Hurricanes 6 to 10, and of those being major hurricanes, Cat 3s are higher, 3 to 5. So they're also calling for an above average season. Why does it say 2021? That's a great question. Probably because I put in the wrong graphic, Paul. That's why. So let me skip through that. I don't know why that says 2021. But thanks for calling me out about that. This is what happens when I try to get things together really, really fast. Clarissa, a hi from Pasco County. Hey. And Dee says she went to Hugo, and she went through Hugo in South Carolina. I live in Boone, North Carolina now. We still get hit with hurricane leftovers. Yeah, the Carolinas do, definitely. And they still get direct hits sometimes, but they usually get the remnants. And even with the remnants of these storms, they still pack a punch. You get a lot of tornadoes, flooding. Ida caused a significant amount of flooding in the Northeast. Paul, I just addressed that. But you get a significant amount of flooding in the Northeast. With some of these storms that do weaken once they get onto land. They weaken significantly, but they still cause damages just the same as when they were categories, Category 1 and Category 2. Maybe not with the winds, but the moisture is still there, the spin is still there in the atmosphere to lead to some of those quick spin-ups, tornadoes, and whatnot. So hurricane season really impacts a lot of people, not just people living along the Gulf of Mexico, not just us here in Florida, but of course the eastern coast of Florida. Hurricane frequency, let's talk about that. May to June and through July, we really don't see a huge uptick in the amount of storms out there in the Atlantic Basin, but we still get storms that make landfall here in Florida during June and during July. We had Elsa that did that last year, and it was a Category 1, still a weaker storm, and thankfully that was the only storm, hurricane rather, to impact us here in Western Florida. But as we get into August and September 10th is actually the official peak of hurricane season. And that's when we see those outlooks. We have those maps. If you watch us pretty frequently during hurricane season, we show those maps pretty much of the entire Atlantic Basin. And there's sometimes 4 or 5 different systems in the basin at once, or at least 3 systems and different disturbances and whatnot. So it gets really, really active during September. Late August, September, and October, and of course we tend to go down a little bit. It doesn't mean that we're done with the hurricanes by October and November. We've still had tropical systems that move in at that time, especially during an active season, but we tend to see most of the activity, or at least a huge uptick in activity in the middle of September. All right, and you're welcome, Paul. Thanks. We have a lot of graphics in the system that look very similar, and especially our hurricane outlook graphics. So I was actually looking at that and was like, I don't think NOAA came out with their outlook just yet, or their forecast just yet. I know they did a pre-forecast, but I'm not sure they did an official forecast. So even then I was just like, I'm not sure if that's the right graphic, but that forecast that I just showed you all, that's at 2021's name on it, is a very similar forecast, at least a CSU one, to the one that we're going to, the one that they released this year. So very similar in the sense that they're calling for another above average season. Can't say that enough. And we'll just have to see if that plays out. Oh, and look at that. There's the rest of the graphic there. Peak season, September 10th, and the season officially ends at the end of November. So we have a ways to go. It is a marathon, not a sprint. Unfortunately, we've seen that throughout these last few years with our hurricane season. Just an incredible few months that we have here in place. So if you have any more Tropics questions, let me know. That's pretty much what we have for now. We're still quite earlier on in the year. Of course, as we get closer and closer to those dates, we'll have way more tropics updates, letting you guys know what to do to prepare. We're already filming some hurricane hacks for you, so that to give you tips on what to do during hurricane season, and if a hurricane is headed to your neck of the woods. Jackie says, it just seems like yesterday we were all talking about hurricane season. This year is going by fast. It is going by really fast. Within no time we'll be in hurricane season. Within no time we'll get our first storm of the year, and then we'll just be full force in it. And we'll be tired. Well, here's a look at Clearwater Beach. Definitely no hurricanes there. It's a gorgeous day. I need us to tilt this up a little bit more, because what we were looking at here earlier were birds, our bird friends at Clearwater Beach, and that tent. You can see the bones of that tent there. That's where Sugar Sands was, and they're finally breaking that down. But overall, it's a beautiful beach day. And here's your headlines over the next several days. This is just a regular forecast now, but of course, if you still have any more tropics questions, let me know and I can discuss that too. The weak cold front is pushing through, or really pushed through today. Very weak. You can see outside, not much of a difference compared to the last few days. It was pretty good outside. I was just out there for a little bit taking a break, and under the shade, of course. It wasn't bad. Not too humid, and we're by the water, so really wasn't bad at all. The warmth is sticking around. It's not really going anywhere. And even with this weak cold front moving through, it's not bringing us a shot of cooler air. We're going to say goodbye to those cold blasts, because we're getting into May. Our average temperatures are going up each day. So we're really not going to get much of a relief from the heat anytime soon, or at least a big relief from the heat. No chilly days, no temperatures in the 40s or 30s, it looks like, unless we get into really unusual blasts of cooler air in here. I don't see that happening in the near future. And a small rain chance each afternoon this week. Here's a live look around, looking good. Look at those colors in St. Pete Beach. Lovely. I'm actually going to make this bigger so you can see. It's beautiful out there. Oh, look at Sarasota. Okay, so there is currently a storm brewing up in inland Sarasota County. You can see that storm there, that cloud in the distance. What a gorgeous, gorgeous sight. I think Poppy Bobby's taking a time lapse of that, so that'll be really cool to see later on. But most areas are pretty quiet, so not a bad day at all. Perfect day to get out to the beach. I do want to show you that storm. And today's rain chances extremely isolated. So you can see here in inland Sarasota moving into Manatee County. That's a nice little downpour. Very small downpour, very isolated. Nowhere else is getting any rain except there. And of course, you get into Charlotte County, there's a little more rain. Throughout today, there's a better shot in the way southern zones, so kind of out of our viewing area, to get a rain shower or even a storm or two. But most of us will stay dry today. But if you're in inland Sarasota, maybe getting some rain right now. And even parts of Manatee, southern Manatee County. You can see the look, or you can look rather, across the state. Not bad, pretty quiet. Just a little bit of cloud cover as we get into the afternoon. Those clouds starting to bubble up with that daytime heating. And high pressure has been in control throughout parts of the southeast, the Midwest. So if you're a little north of us, you're probably having a nice day, especially in Kentucky, Tennessee. That's gorgeous over there as high pressure dominates. That sinking air is pushing away the rain and clouds and whatnot. So it's looking pretty good and feeling pretty pleasant throughout, especially some parts of the southeast. 68 in Knoxville, 75 in Atlanta. That's wonderful. A little cooler as you get way north, 30s and 40s, but we don't have to talk about that. Nothing cool about what's going on here. It's 88 degrees in Tampa. Could be a little worse, 91 in Phoenix, that dry heat over there. But we're still definitely one of the warmest spots of the country. No complaints though, right? 88 in Tampa, 84 in Zephyr Hills, 86 in Lakeland with a mix of sun and clouds. Dew point 64. A little sticky, but nothing terrible, nothing that we can't deal with. And those dew points will remain in the 60s over the next couple of days. So we're really not seeing much of a change in that. Dew points measure the surface moisture. So you will feel that humidity throughout the next few days, but it won't be oppressive, which is nice. Dew points in the 70s usually means oppressive humidity. A lot stickier out there. You can feel the air. It feels very heavy. But that's not really the case over the next couple of days, but it will feel like a Florida summer as we get into the weekend. That's not really going to change those temperatures. So for the next 12 hours, we get down to the upper 60s overnight under partly cloudy skies. We still have a couple of showers on the radar as we get into the rest of the evening, but nothing significant. Once again, you saw that cell in Sarasota County. That's it. We could get some more isolated cells later on today. And this is Thursday. Very similar situation, scattered showers, but this is still not going to impact everybody. So you may get some rain tomorrow. You may not. That's just the nature of the situation. Along I-4, possibly a light shower even along the coast with the sea breeze. We can get a few showers forming in the Nature Coast. Any showers that do form really won't last for very long, and then they'll dissipate later on that evening. Friday, a similar situation, except we could get a few showers along the coast, Pinellas all the way down to Sarasota. There's a possibility of a little downpour, but this still kind of remains hit or miss. So you may get some rain, you may not. And I think at this point, I think a lot of us are hoping for a little bit of rain because it's been so dry, especially in our southern counties. So we are under the amount of rain we should see this time of year. In fact, southern Sarasota is still in a severe drought, and our southern spots like Highlands, Hardy, DeSoto, Manatee County, still in that moderate drought range. So we could use the rain. We're a little parched. We'll get some small chances of that over the next couple of days. The heat remains, though. Check out these temperatures. Pretty much pushing 90 each day. We have a high of 90 tomorrow. Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, 89. It's pretty much 90 degrees at this point. 89 to 90 doesn't really feel much different from each other. We have a normal high of 85 degrees. That's about 5 degrees above where we're supposed to be. So above average heat is to stay or stick around at least through the weekend, and that sticks around through next week too. We're going to stay in the upper 80s, close to 90 rather, as we head into Monday and Tuesday of this upcoming week. So this is your extended forecast looking ahead. Still not seeing anything significant when it comes to rain. No drought busting rain really. We need a good system moving in here that could bring a bit of widespread rain, a good bit of rain over a longer period of time, except those sporadic downpours that we're seeing. Let's see. So if you have any questions, once again, please let me know. I'll try to get back to hurricane season. I was a little confused because like Paul mentioned, he was like, why does it say 2021? And I was like, why does that say 2021? I don't know. So we kicked it off kind of on the confusing side. So my apologies for that. That's what I get for rushing. But I do want to show you this retired ice storm graphic once again because I think it's just fantastic. It's just a fantastic visual to show you all how many ice storms have been retired. And of course, I is right in the middle there of that list. So when you have, those ice storms are usually in the peak of hurricane season. The water is nice and warm. We get storms to intensify. Ida rapidly intensified. I remember forecasting it and being here just for a few hours and seeing the storm blossom in the way that it did once it got into the Gulf of Mexico and it tapped into that bath water. The waters in the Gulf at that time of year were insanely warm, still warmer than they need to be for this time of year, but because it's usually pretty warm, but well warmer than average. And we had that rapid intensification. It was just an incredible storm to see. And it was devastating to see what happened to the southern Louisiana, southeastern Louisiana. It was absolutely awful. So there's a reason why it was retired. You retire storms when there's catastrophe, when there's devastation, when people, and a lot of people died, unfortunately. I think it was 91 official deaths. I had to double check on that. Maybe 92. But that's a lot. Even one death from a storm is a lot. And that's just my opinion. So here's all the storms that retired. That includes Irma. That was a storm that impacted us here back in 2017, right before I got here. Hi, Jeff. Amateur meteorologist Jeff from Dunlap, Tennessee. What's up? I lived in Tampa Bay area for 44 years. Wow. And now you're in Tennessee. Tennessee's cool. It's very, very cool. I'm sure you might miss the beaches here and the winter weather here, our winter weather, which is not really winter weather. It's gorgeous weather in the winter. But yeah, you guys, that's about it for me. I'm trying to get through all these comments here that are weather related. Let me go to my page and see. People are trying to talk. Oh, it's Tyler. What's going on? Tyler did not make the list this year. No, Tyler did not make the list. I'm not even sure. Well, the thing is about these lists, and I think sometimes people think that the WMO comes up with lists every year. They just kind of pull things out of a hat, and then boom, those are the lists. These lists are already written out. They're written out in books, and they're just recycled throughout the years. So unless a storm is catastrophic, or cause a lot of damage, they tend not to retire those. So sometimes you hear storm names that you've heard before, and you're like, haven't I heard this before about 10 years ago? Yeah, because if it didn't cause any catastrophe, or if it didn't really pack a punch and impact anyone in that type of way, they'll use it over again. So I'm not exactly sure if Tyler is on a list. I have to double check, but there's a bunch of names that are recycled each year. Of course, some names that have been recycled, retired rather. Katrina has been retired. I'm trying to think of other names that have been retired throughout the years. There have been plenty. I think in total 96 names have been retired. I have to double check that, which is just an extreme amount of names. But yes, friends, that's it for me. Oh, okay, Ida 89 U.S. fatalities with Ida. I wanted to double check that, so I didn't want to be wrong, and I wanted to respect everyone that was impacted there. 170 mile per hour winds. That's insane. It made landfall as a Category 4 storm, and just was absolutely awful. Absolutely awful. All right, everyone, I am going to wrap this up here. Once again, if you have any questions, please let me know. You can always follow me on Twitter and on Facebook. I can answer your questions there in the comment section. I comment back. In the meantime, in between time, I'm going to end on a wonderful shot of what's around town. And I will keep this on here for a little bit, and I will see you all tomorrow morning. Have a great rest of your day. Be safe, be kind, be well, and be prepared for hurricane season is coming up. Like Jackie said, this year is going by quickly, and in no time, it's going to be hurricane season. So you want to make sure you're preparing now before any storms head our way. Hopefully not, though. We're crossing our fingers. Have a good day. I'll see you all later.